Judge Nyasha Crowell, a woman who had spent 20 years earning the right to sit on the highest bench in the county, always believed the law protected everyone equally. Today, on the steps of the very courthouse where she delivered justice, four police officers are about to teach her a different lesson. As she stands in her deep red power suit, briefcase in hand, one officer grabs her arm while another shouts directly in her face. Her crime? Standing exactly where the Constitution says she has every right to stand. What happens in the next 5 minutes will go viral across the nation. But what happens 5 minutes after that will leave every single person watching in absolute shock. Why would police officers target a woman on public courthouse steps? What are they about to discover about who she really is? And how will she respond when the tables turn completely? Stay tuned to find out. And before we get into this story, let us know in the comments where you are watching from today. If this story moves you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. The hand came out of nowhere. Officer Morrison's palm connected with the side of Nyasha's face. Not hard enough to knock her down. Hard enough to humiliate. Hard enough to send a message. Hard enough for every phone camera on those courthouse steps to capture in perfect clarity. The crowd gasped. Someone shouted. Phones pushed closer. Nyasha's head turned slightly from the impact. She stood there for a moment. Still. Silent. Then she slowly turned back to face him. Her expression had not changed. Her eyes remained half-closed. Her arms stayed folded across her chest. The same position she had been in when they first approached her. Hey, you can't stand here. Those had been Morrison's first words. Nyasha had looked up from the documents she was reviewing near the courthouse entrance. Her leather briefcase sat at her feet. Her red suit caught the morning light like a flame against the gray stone steps. This is a public space, she had replied calmly. Morrison smirked. Not for loitering. I am not loitering. That single sentence. Firm. Measured. Unapologetic. That was all it took. 3 more officers closed in. Hernandez from the left. Tucker from the right. Reeves blocking her path to the courthouse doors. 4 men surrounding 1 woman. 4 uniforms against 1 red suit. What's in the briefcase? Hernandez demanded. Legal documents. Let me see some ID. Nyasha looked at him steadily. Why? The question hung in the air. Such a simple question. Such a reasonable question. But reasonable did not matter here. Not to these men. Not in this moment. Morrison stepped closer. Close enough that she could smell the coffee on his breath. Close enough that his shadow fell across her face. You think you're special? The crowd on the steps grew larger. Phones multiplied. People stopped walking. Stopped talking. Started watching. Started recording. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Morrison said. His hand gripped her elbow. Tight. Too tight. Nyasha did not flinch. Did not pull away. Did not raise her voice. I asked you a question, she said quietly. Why do you need my identification? What law am I breaking? Morrison's jaw tightened. His partner Hernandez laughed. She's got a mouth on her. Yeah. They always do. They. The word dripped with meaning. With history. With everything these badges had represented for too long. That was when Morrison slapped her. Right there. In front of 50 witnesses. In front of a dozen cameras. On the steps of a courthouse where people came to seek justice. And Nyasha Crowell did not react. She turned her head back slowly. Her eyes met Morrison's. And in those eyes, he saw something that made him uncomfortable. Something that looked like patience. Something that looked like certainty. Something that looked like someone who knew exactly how this was going to end. But he was too far gone to understand it. All right, he said, grabbing her arm harder. You're coming with us. He started pulling her toward the street. Away from the courthouse. Away from the doors she had every right to walk through. The crowd murmured. Someone yelled for them to stop. Someone else yelled to call a lawyer. But Nyasha went quietly. Calmly. Almost willingly. As if she was waiting for something. As if she knew something they did not. And in exactly 3 minutes, Officer Morrison and every person on those steps would understand why her silence was not fear. Why her calm was not weakness. Why her patience was about to become their undoing. The officer had no idea who he had just put his hands on. None of them did. And when the truth came out, their lives would never be the same. The officers smelled blood in the water. They had no idea they were the ones about to drown. Morrison tightened his grip on Nyasha's arm as he walked her down the courthouse steps. His partner Hernandez flanked her left side. Tucker and Reeves followed close behind. 4 officers. 1 woman. A power imbalance they had created 1,000 times before. It always worked. It always went their way. Today would be different. Stop resisting, Morrison said loudly. For the cameras. For the record. even though Nyasha had not moved a muscle. She walked with them. But not like someone being arrested. More like someone observing a process. Taking mental notes. Her spine remained straight. Her shoulders stayed back. Even with hands on her, she walked like she owned those steps. Because she did. "What's your name?" Hernandez demanded. Nyasha said nothing. "I asked you a question." Silence. Morrison spun her around to face him. "You think you're too good to answer? I think you have not given me a legal reason for this detention." The crowd pressed closer. More phones. More witnesses. More evidence being captured in real time. "Your attitude is reason enough," Tucker said from behind. "Attitude is not a crime. It is if we say it is." The words landed. The crowd heard them. The cameras recorded them. And Nyasha filed them away with everything else. A woman in the crowd shouted. "Leave her alone. She's not doing anything." Morrison ignored her. He was too focused on establishing dominance. Too focused on breaking this woman's calm. It unnerved him. Suspects were supposed to be scared. Angry. Resistant. This woman was none of those things. She was just waiting. "Maybe we should check that briefcase," Hernandez suggested loudly. "Make sure it's not stolen property." The insult landed publicly. Deliberately. Designed to humiliate. Designed to reduce. Designed to remind her of her place. Nyasha looked at the briefcase still clutched in her hand. The leather was worn from years of use. The gold clasp caught the light. And there, barely visible unless you knew to look for it, was an embossed seal. The courthouse seal. Reeves noticed it. His eyes narrowed. Something flickered across his face. Confusion. Suspicion. The first crack in their certainty. But Morrison was too far gone to see it. "I've seen your type before," he said, stepping closer. "Think you can walk around like you own the place. Think the rules don't apply to you." "The rules apply to everyone," Nyasha replied evenly. "That is precisely my point." Morrison's radio crackled. He ignored it. It crackled again. He reached for it impatiently, eyes still locked on Nyasha. "What?" Static. Then a voice. Morrison frowned. He looked at Nyasha. Really looked. At her suit. Her posture. Her briefcase. Her complete lack of fear. Something cold moved through his stomach. He did not know why yet. But his body knew. Some instinct buried deep was screaming at him. Warning him. Telling him he had made a terrible mistake. But it was too late to listen. "Whatever," he muttered into the radio. "We're bringing her in for questioning." The voice on the other end went silent. Then, very quietly, "Morrison. You need to stop. Right now." For the first time, doubt flickered in Morrison's eyes. But his pride was stronger than his instincts. "I said we're handling it." He clicked off the radio and turned back to Nyasha. She had not moved. Had not spoken. Had not reacted to any of it. She just stood there. Arms folded. Chin lifted. Eyes half closed. Waiting. And what she was waiting for was about to arrive. Something was wrong. The crowd felt it before they understood it. This woman was not reacting the way victims react. Nyasha moved with the officers as they guided her down the steps. But everything about her presence contradicted everything about their power. They were loud. She was silent. They were aggressive. She was still. They were chaotic. She was calm. The contrast made people look closer. A lawyer near the back of the crowd tilted his head. He had been walking past on his way to another courtroom. Now he stopped. Stared. That briefcase looked familiar. The way she carried herself. The precision of her words. This was not street language. This was courtroom language. "Who is she?" someone whispered. The question spread like ripples in water. People looked closer. At her suit. Expensive. Tailored. Not off the rack. At her shoes. Polished. Professional. At the way she stood even with hands on her. Like a queen surrounded by subjects who forgot their place. Something did not add up. The courthouse security guard had noticed too. He was speaking urgently into his radio. His eyes were wide. His face was pale. He kept looking at the officers, then at Nyasha, then back at his radio. The courthouse doors opened. A clerk rushed out. A woman in her 50s. Moving faster than anyone had seen her move in years. She ran in heels down the stone steps, nearly tripping twice. Her face was white as paper. Behind her came another figure. A man in an expensive suit. Gray at his temples. Authority in every step. Deputy court administrator, his badge red. Then another security guard. Then another. Everyone moving with purpose. Everyone wearing the same expression. Horror. Morrison did not notice. He was too busy trying to intimidate the woman in red. Too busy asserting power he thought he had. Too busy being exactly who he had always been. "You're going to regret this attitude," he was saying. "Trust me." Nyasha's eyes flickered. Not to him. Past him. To the people rushing down the steps. To the panic spreading through the ranks. To the moment that was about to arrive. The court administrator reached them first. "Officer." His voice cut through everything. "Step away from that woman." Morrison turned, annoyed. "We're handling a situation here." "No." The administrator's voice was ice. "You're creating one." For the first time, Morrison hesitated. This was a court official. Someone with actual power. Someone who could cause problems. "This woman was loitering," he said. "Being uncooperative. We're taking her in for questioning." The administrator stared at him. Then at Nyasha. Then back at Morrison. "Do you know who this is?" Morrison sneered. "Some lady who doesn't know her place." The crowd went quiet. So quiet you could hear the wind moving through the columns. The administrator almost smiled. Almost. The clerk caught her breath. Leaned in. Whispered something in the administrator's ear. His eyes closed briefly. Opened. When they fixed on Morrison again, they held something that looked like disgust. And something that looked like pity. "Officer Morrison," he said slowly. Deliberately. Each word weighted with consequence. "This woman is Judge Nyasha Crowell." Pause. "Presiding judge for Courtroom B." Another pause. "She is scheduled to take the bench." He checked his watch. "In approximately 3 minutes." The words hung in the air. Then they landed. Silence. Complete. Total. Devastating. Morrison's face went through a journey. Confusion first. The name meant nothing. Then recognition. The title registered. Then horror. The full scope of what he had done crashed into him like a freight train. His hands dropped from Nyasha's arms. Like her skin had suddenly burned him. He took a step back. Then another. His partners were doing the same. Hernandez looked like he might be sick. Tucker had gone pale. Reeves was already walking away, as if distance might save him. The crowd began to murmur. Then to shout. "She's a judge? They just assaulted a judge." Phones pushed closer. People pressed forward. The story was already writing itself. Already spreading. Already becoming something that would never be contained. And Judge Nyasha Crowell stood in the center of it all. Still calm. Still patient. Still in complete control. She had been waiting for this moment. And now it had arrived. The words detonated across the courthouse steps like a bomb that had been ticking for 18 minutes. Judge. Presiding. 3 minutes. Every syllable was a nail in a coffin that had just started being built. The crowd erupted. Gasps became shouts. Whispers became roars. People who had been silently watching now found their voices. "She's a judge? You just hit a judge. Oh my God." Phones moved closer. Bodies pressed forward. The officers stood frozen in place. For men who had been so confident seconds ago now looked like children caught in something they could not explain their way out of. Morrison's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Nothing came out. His brain was still processing. Still trying to reconcile the woman he had grabbed, insulted, slapped, with the title he had just heard. Presiding judge. The words did not compute. They could not compute. Judges did not stand on courthouse steps being reviewed like suspects. Judges did not get questioned about their right to exist. Judges did not get slapped. But this one had. And he had done it. Hernandez made a sound. Something between a groan and a whimper. His career was flashing before his eyes. 22 years on the force. His pension. His family. His future. Gone. In 18 minutes of arrogance. Tucker was already backing away. His hands up. As if putting distance between himself and the scene might somehow separate him from responsibility. It would not. Reeves had disappeared entirely. Probably already on the phone with his union rep, probably already crafting a defense that would never hold. The administrator stepped forward. "Your Honor." His voice was formal now. Respectful. "We apologize for this situation. Your courtroom is ready." Nyasha did not respond immediately. Instead, she did something that would become the most replayed moment of the entire video. She adjusted her jacket. Slowly. Deliberately. Brushing off the sleeve where Morrison had grabbed her. Straightening the collar he had displaced. Every gesture designed for the cameras. Every movement telling a story without words. Then she turned to face the officers. Three words. The same 3 words she had asked at the beginning. Now carrying the weight of revelation. I asked you why I could not stand here. Her eyes swept from Morrison to Hernandez to Tucker to Reeves, wherever he was hiding. You never answered. She let the silence stretch. You just grabbed. Another pause. You just demanded. Another. You just struck. The final word landed like a verdict. Morrison tried to speak. His voice cracked. Judge Crowell, we didn't know. Exactly. She cut him off with a single word. You didn't know who I was. Her voice dropped lower. Softer. More devastating. So you treated me like I was no one. Like I was guilty of existing. Like my presence on public steps was a crime that required force. She stepped closer to Morrison. He flinched. Actually flinched. Remember that. Her eyes held his. Remember how you treated a stranger. Because that is who you really are. Not who you are when cameras are watching. Not who you are when consequences loom. Who you are when you think no one important is looking. The crowd erupted in applause. Spontaneous. Thunderous. People were cheering. Crying. Shouting affirmation. But Nyasha had already turned away. She straightened her briefcase. Turned toward the courthouse. Began walking up the steps. Each step deliberate. Each step heavy with meaning. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. Security guards fell in beside her. Not as escorts. As honor guard. Morrison watched her go. Watched his career walk away. Watched his future disappear through those massive doors. And from somewhere in the crowd, the clerk's voice carried one last piece of information. By the way, Officer Morrison. He turned. That case she's about to hear? She smiled. Cold. Satisfied. It involves officers accused of making a false arrest. Body cam footage contradicting police reports. Civil rights violations. Morrison's face went gray. Should be an interesting morning. The doors closed behind Judge Crowell. And Officer Morrison realized that the worst moment of his life had not ended. It had just begun. The courthouse doors closed behind Nyasha. But she was not finished. She was just getting started. The marble hallways echoed with her steps. Click, click, click. The sound of authority returning to its rightful place. Staff members lined the walls. Some stared openly. Others quickly looked away. Word had already spread through the building like wildfire. Everyone knew what had happened outside. Everyone knew what was about to happen inside. A young clerk fell into step beside her. Your Honor, the courtroom is ready. The Williams case is first on the docket. I am aware. The defendant is present. The officers who made the arrest are present. Nyasha nodded. Good. Ma'am. The clerk hesitated. Are you okay? What they did out there? Nyasha stopped walking. Turned to face the young woman. Her expression softened slightly. What is your name? Kendra, Your Honor. Kendra. Nyasha's voice was gentle. What happened on those steps happens every day in this country. To people who are not judges. To people who have no title to protect them. To people whose names will never trend on social media. She paused. The only difference today is that cameras were watching. And the person they targeted happened to have power. Kendra nodded slowly. Remember that when you watch me take that bench, Nyasha continued. I am not doing this for revenge. I am doing this because Marcus Williams deserves the same justice I am about to receive. And the only way he gets it is if someone in authority refuses to look away. She turned and continued walking. Kendra watched her go. Then wiped her eyes. Then followed. The courtroom doors were massive. Oak. Polished. Symbols of everything courts were supposed to represent. Fairness. Truth. Equal protection under the law. Today, those words would mean something. Nyasha paused at the entrance to her chambers. The small office behind the courtroom where judges prepared. She closed the door. Took one breath. Then another. The red suit beneath her robe would be invisible once she took the bench. But she would know it was there. Everyone who had seen the video would know. The same suit she had been humiliated in would be the suit she delivered justice in. The same woman. The same day. Different power. She opened the case file on her desk one final time. Marcus Williams. 24 years old. College student. No prior record. Accused of assaulting officers Reeves and Tucker during a routine traffic stop. The officers claimed he had been aggressive. Made threatening movements. Reached for his waistband. The body cam footage told a different story. A story of a young man doing everything right. Hands visible. Voice calm. Complying with every command. And still ending up on the ground. Still ending up with a knee on his neck. Still ending up charged with crimes he did not commit. Because the system protected lies when they wore badges. Nyasha closed the file. Not today. She put on her black robe. The weight of it settled on her shoulders. The weight of responsibility. The weight of power. The weight of what she was about to do. A knock on the door. Your Honor. They're ready. Nyasha stood. Straightened her robe. Lifted her chin. So am I. The courtroom was packed. Word had spread. People had abandoned other hearings to be here. The gallery was standing room only. The press section overflowed. Cameras that would normally be banned had been given special permission. Everyone wanted to see what happened next. At the prosecution table sat officers Reeves and Tucker. The same Reeves who had blocked Nyasha's path to the courthouse. The same Tucker who had told her that attitude was a crime if they said it was. They did not know yet. Had not heard about what happened on the steps. They sat there confident. Smug. Certain that their testimony would be believed. That their reports would stand. That this case would go like every other case. It would not. At the defense table sat Marcus Williams. Young. Scared. Shoulders hunched from months of carrying false accusations. Beside him, his public defender reviewed notes with trembling hands. Marcus looked up when the door opened. His eyes met Nyasha's. And something in his face shifted. Some small hope. Some tiny spark that maybe, just maybe, today would be different. The bailiff's voice boomed. All rise. The courtroom stood as one. The Honorable Judge Nyasha Crowell presiding. Nyasha entered. Walked to the bench. Took her seat on the elevated platform. The seat of power. The seat of authority. The seat that Officer Morrison had tried to prevent her from reaching. She looked down at the courtroom. At the officers who had lied. At the young man they had tried to destroy. At the system that usually protected the powerful. This court is now in session. Her voice filled the room. The matter before us, State versus Marcus Williams. She opened the case file. The charge, assault on a police officer. She looked up. The evidence, body camera footage. Police reports. Witness statements. Her eyes found officers Reeves and Tucker. They were just now realizing. Just now connecting. The woman on the steps. The judge on the Let us begin. She turned to the clerk. Play the body camera footage. Full, unedited version. The officers shifted uncomfortably. The full version was never meant to be seen. The screen flickered to life. And every lie these officers had ever told began its slow, public death. What happened next in that courtroom would change everything. For Marcus Williams. For officers Reeves and Tucker. For the 4 officers outside who were already being detained for questioning. And for every person who had ever wondered if justice was just a word. Today, they would find out. The screen flickered to life. And every lie officers Reeves and Tucker had ever told began its slow, public death. The footage started with dashboard camera view. Nighttime. A quiet suburban street. Marcus Williams behind the wheel of a Honda Civic. His hands gripped the steering wheel at 10 and 2. Exactly where they teach you in driver's education. Blue lights appeared in his rearview mirror. Marcus pulled over immediately. No hesitation. No delay. He turned on his interior light so the officers could see inside the car. He rolled down his window. He placed both hands back on the steering wheel. He did everything right. The courtroom watched in silence as officers Reeves and Tucker approached the vehicle. Their body cameras captured every word. Every movement. Every moment that was about to contradict their sworn reports. License and registration. Marcus's voice came through the speakers. Young. Polite. Nervous but cooperative. Yes, sir. I'm reaching into my glove compartment for my registration. My license is in my wallet in my back pocket. I'm going to reach for it slowly. He announced every movement. Just like they tell you to do. Just like they say will keep you safe. Hurry up. Reeves's voice was sharp. Impatient. Already hostile. Marcus moved carefully. Deliberately. Produced his documents. Handed them through the window with both hands visible. Here you go, officer. Nyasha paused the footage. The courtroom held its breath. Officer Reeves. Her voice was calm. Professional. Deadly. Your report states that the defendant made threatening movements toward you during this traffic stop. Reeves straightened in his seat. That's correct, Your Honor. You stated, and I quote, that he reached toward his waistband in an aggressive manner. Yes. Nyasha gestured toward the frozen screen. Marcus's hands were clearly visible. Both on the steering wheel. Not moving. Show me the threatening movement. Silence. Officer Reeves. I asked you a question. Point to the moment on this footage where Mr. Williams reached toward his waistband. Reeves shifted in his seat. His partner Tucker was staring at the table. Neither would meet the judge's eyes. It happened fast, Your Honor. The camera might not have caught. The camera was on your chest. Pointed directly at the defendant. recording continuously. Nyasha's voice never rose, never wavered. Are you suggesting your own body camera malfunctioned at the exact moment you claim to have been threatened? The prosecution attorney stood quickly. Your Honor, perhaps we could. Sit down. 2 words. The attorney sat. Nyasha pressed play. The footage continued. Marcus handing over his documents. Waiting patiently. Hands returning to the steering wheel. Then Reeves reached into the car. Grabbed Marcus by the collar. Dragged him through the window. The courtroom gasped. Marcus's voice on the footage. Confused. Scared. What did I do? What did I do? No answer. Just officers pulling him to the ground. Tucker's knee pressing into his back. Reeves's hands forcing his face into the asphalt. Stop resisting. But Marcus was not resisting. His body was limp. Compliant. His arms were not flailing. His legs were not kicking. He was simply lying there. Taking it. Surviving it. I can't breathe. The words echoed through the courtroom. The same words that had echoed through history. The same words that should have meant something. Nyasha paused the footage again. Officer Tucker. Your report states that the defendant struck you multiple times during the arrest. Tucker's voice was barely audible. Yes, Your Honor. Where on this footage does that occur? Nothing. Your report indicates you sustained defensive injuries. Were you treated at a hospital? No, Your Honor. Were your injuries photographed? No. So we have your word. Against this footage. Nyasha let the silence stretch. Against video evidence that shows a compliant young man being dragged from his vehicle. Thrown to the ground. Held down with a knee on his spine. She looked at both officers. While he said he could not breathe. The gallery was completely still. No whispers. No movement. Just the weight of truth finally being spoken aloud. Marcus Williams sat at the defense table with tears streaming down his face. For months, no one had believed him. For months, he had carried the weight of accusations he knew were false. For months, the system had told him that his truth did not matter. Today it mattered. Today someone was listening. And officers Reeves and Tucker were about to learn that the lies they had told so easily were the same lies that would destroy them completely. The prosecution knew it was over. Everyone in that courtroom knew it was over. The state's attorney rose slowly. His face was gray. His hands trembled slightly as he shuffled papers that no longer mattered. Your Honor. His voice cracked. He cleared his throat. Tried again. In light of the evidence presented, the state moves to dismiss all charges against Marcus Williams. The words hung in the air. Then the gallery erupted. Applause. Cheering. Crying. Months of tension releasing in a single moment. Marcus's mother in the front row collapsed into her sister's arms. His public defender dropped her head to the table and wept. Marcus himself sat frozen. Unable to process. Unable to believe. After everything he had been through. After every night spent in a cell. After every moment of doubt and despair. Free. He was free. Nyasha let the celebration continue for a moment. Let the joy fill the room. Let Marcus absorb what had just happened. Then she raised her hand. Silence fell immediately. The court accepts the state's motion. All charges against Marcus Deshaun Williams are hereby dismissed. Her gavel fell. The sound echoed like thunder. Mr. Williams. You are free to go. Marcus stood slowly. His legs shook. His public defender steadied him with a hand on his arm. He turned to look at the judge. At the woman who had given him back his life. Thank you, he whispered. The words were barely audible. But everyone heard them. Nyasha nodded once. A small acknowledgement. A moment of connection between two people who understood something the rest of the room could only imagine. Then she turned her attention to officers Reeves and Tucker. They had not moved from the prosecution table. They sat rigid. Pale. Watching their careers dissolve in real time. Officers. Nyasha's voice was ice. You will remain in this courtroom. Internal affairs representatives are waiting outside. You will be escorted to separate interviews immediately following these proceedings. Reeves opened his mouth to speak. I strongly advise you to remain silent. He closed it. Nyasha looked out at the gallery. At the camera. Before we adjourn, she said, I want to address something. The room went still again. This morning, on the steps of this courthouse, I experienced something that millions of Americans experience every day. I was stopped. Questioned. Touched. Struck. Not because I had committed a crime. But because someone with a badge decided I did not belong. Her eyes swept the room. The only difference between my experience and the experiences of countless others is that I happen to have a title. A position. Power that protected me from consequences that could have been far worse. She paused. Marcus Williams had no such protection. He did everything right. Complied with every command. Announced every movement. And still he was brutalized. Still he was charged. Still he was failed by a system that should have protected him. Her voice dropped lower. Softer. More powerful for its quietness. Authority without accountability is not law enforcement. It is intimidation. The words landed like stones. The badge is not a license. It is a responsibility. When that responsibility is betrayed, when power is abused, when lies replace truth, the system fails everyone, including the officers who thought they were above it. She looked directly at Reeves and Tucker. Today, the truth prevailed. Today, one man got justice. Her gaze shifted to the gallery. Tomorrow, we must ask ourselves, how many others are still waiting? Silence. Then, slowly, someone in the back began to clap. Then another. Then another. Until the entire courtroom was on its feet. Applauding. Not just for Marcus. Not just for Nyasha. But for something bigger. Something that felt like hope. Nyasha rose from the bench. This court is adjourned. She walked out the same door she had entered. But everything had changed. Outside the courthouse, the world was on fire. The good kind of fire. The video from the steps had spread faster than anyone could have imagined. 10 million views had become 50 million. 50 million had become 100 million. Every news channel. Every social media platform. Every corner of the internet. The same clip. Playing over and over. Officer Morrison's hand connecting with Judge Crowell's face. Her calm, unmoved expression. The revelation. The walk up the steps. Same woman. Same day. Different power. The contrast was devastating. The message was clear. Reporters lined the courthouse steps. Camera crews jostled for position. Microphones thrust toward anyone willing to speak. The story had become something bigger than one confrontation. Bigger than one courtroom. Bigger than one judge. It had become a mirror. Reflecting everything people already knew but rarely saw proven so publicly. So undeniably. So completely. Morrison and Hernandez had been detained immediately after the incident. Tucker and Reeves joined them within the hour. 4 officers. 4 separate investigations. 4 careers ending simultaneously. The union tried to intervene. Failed. The evidence was too clear. The witnesses too numerous. The video too viral. No amount of spin could save them. Inside the courthouse, Nyasha sat in her chambers. The door was closed. The blinds were drawn. For the first time all day, she was alone. She did not feel victorious. Did not feel satisfied. Did not feel any of the things people might expect her to feel. She felt tired. Tired of fighting battles that should not need to be fought. Tired of proving her right to exist in spaces she had earned. Tired of being exceptional when ordinary should have been enough. A knock at the door. Your Honor? Marcus Williams is asking to see you. Nyasha straightened her robe. Composed her expression. Returned to the version of herself the world needed to see. Send him in. Marcus entered slowly. He looked different than he had in the courtroom. Lighter. Taller. As if the weight of false accusations had physically been pressing him down, and now he could finally stand straight. Judge Crowell. His voice was steady now. Strong. I wanted to thank you. Personally. You don't need to thank me, Mr. Williams. I did my job. No. He shook his head. You did more than that. You saw me. You believed the evidence. You asked questions nobody else would ask. He stepped closer. That video of what happened to me has been available for 8 months. 8 months. Every lawyer who looked at my case saw it. Every prosecutor. Every judge who handled my preliminary hearings. They all saw the same footage you saw today. His voice cracked. And nobody did anything. Nobody asked why my hands were on the steering wheel if I was supposedly reaching for my waistband. Nobody questioned how I could have struck 2 officers while lying face down on the pavement. He wiped his eyes. You were the first one who looked at the evidence and saw a human being. Not a case number. Not a defendant. A person. Nyasha was quiet for a moment. What happened to you should never have happened, she said finally. And the fact that it took this long for anyone to listen is a failure of every institution that touched your case. She stood. Walked around her desk. Stood in front of him. I am sorry. Not just as a judge. As a human being. What you experienced was wrong. And I am sorry the system failed you for so long. Marcus nodded. Swallowed hard. What happens now, he asked. To the officers? They will face charges. Criminal charges. For what they did to you and for what they did to me this morning. Will they go to prison? I cannot predict outcomes. But the evidence is overwhelming. The public is watching. And for once, accountability seems likely. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Judge Crowell. What you said in there. About authority and accountability. That was real. Yes. You really believe the system can change? Nyasha considered the question carefully. I believe the system can be forced to change. When enough people refuse to look away. When enough evidence cannot be buried. When enough voices demand better. She met his eyes. I believe you are proof of that. Marcus smiled. The first real smile in months. Thank you, Your Honor. For everything. He turned to leave. Stopped at the door. For what it's worth, he said, looking back. You should have seen the look on that officer's face when they announced who you were. A small smile crossed Nyasha's face. The first real smile of the day. I did see it. It was beautiful. Yes. It was. 3 weeks later, the verdicts came down. Officer Morrison. Guilty of assault on a public official. Guilty of civil rights violations. Guilty of conduct unbecoming an officer. 18 months in federal prison. Immediate termination. Pension forfeited. Officer Hernandez. Guilty of assault. Guilty of failure to intervene. 12 months in federal prison. Immediate termination. Pension forfeited. Officers Tucker and Reeves. Guilty of filing false police reports. Guilty of perjury. Guilty of civil rights violations in the Marcus Williams case. 24 months each. Immediate termination. Pensions forfeited. 4 officers. 4 convictions. 4 families destroyed by the arrogance of men who thought badges made them untouchable. The news covered every moment. Every verdict. Every sentence. The same footage played on loop. Morrison's hand on Nyasha's face. Nyasha's calm. The revelation. The walk. And now, the The union filed appeals. They would fail. The evidence was too clear. The public too engaged. The political will too strong. For once, accountability actually happened. Nyasha watched none of it. She had returned to work the day after the courtroom drama. Heard cases. Made rulings. Did her job. The same job she had been doing for 20 years. The media wanted interviews. She declined. The talk shows wanted appearances. She declined. The book publishers wanted deals. She declined. She was not interested in being a celebrity. She was interested in being a judge. In doing the work that mattered. In making decisions that affected real people's real lives. The attention would fade. It always did. Some new outrage would capture the public's imagination. Some new injustice would demand their anger. But what happened in her courtroom? The cases she heard. The verdicts she delivered. That would continue. Quietly. Consistently. Without cameras or applause. That was the real work. Marcus Williams visited her chambers one more time. He had enrolled in law school. Decided to become a civil rights attorney. Decided to spend his life doing what she had done for him. You inspired me, he said. Not just by what you did in that courtroom. But by who you are. Nyasha smiled. Who am I? Someone who refused to shrink. Someone who stayed calm when anyone else would have exploded. Someone who used power the way it's supposed to be used. He paused. Someone I want to become. Then become it, she said simply. The world needs more people who refuse to look away. More people who ask the questions no one else will ask. More people who believe that truth matters. She stood. Extended her hand. Good luck, Mr. Williams. I expect to see you in my courtroom someday. On the right side of the bar. Marcus shook her hand firmly. Yes, Your Honor. You will. He left. And Nyasha turned to the next case file on her desk. Another name. Another story. Another chance to make things right. The work continued. It always did. That was the point. 6 months later, Nyasha Crowell stood at a podium in Washington, D.C. She had not sought this moment. Had not campaigned for it. Had not wanted the spotlight that came with what happened on those courthouse steps. But sometimes the moment chooses you. The National Bar Association had invited her to deliver their annual keynote address. The theme was Justice in America. The audience was 2,000 lawyers, judges, and legal professionals. And millions more watching on livestream. Nyasha looked out at the crowd. Took a breath. Began. 6 months ago, I was assaulted on the steps of my own courthouse. By officers sworn to protect and serve. For the crime of standing in a public space while black. Silence in the auditorium. They did not know I was a judge. They did not care who I was. They saw a black woman and they saw an opportunity to exercise power. To dominate. To humiliate. She paused. The only reason they faced consequences is because cameras were watching. Because witnesses were recording. Because my title gave the story weight it would not otherwise have had. Her voice dropped. But what about all the stories without cameras? What about all the names we never learn? What about all the people who experience what I experienced but have no title to protect them? No platform to amplify them? No power to demand accountability? She looked directly into the camera. Into the eyes of everyone watching. Those stories matter too. Those people matter too. And until our system treats every citizen with the same dignity and respect regardless of their position, we have not achieved justice. We have only achieved hierarchy. The audience was completely still. I did not become a symbol by choice. I became one because I refused to shrink. Because I stayed calm when calm was the hardest thing to stay. Because I trusted that the truth would eventually prevail. She leaned forward. But we cannot rely on individual courage to fix systemic failure. We cannot ask victims to be exceptional in order to receive basic fairness. We cannot celebrate rare moments of accountability while ignoring the countless moments where accountability never comes. Her voice rose slightly. Not angry. Passionate. The work of justice is not dramatic. It is not viral. It is not a single moment captured on camera and shared around the world. The work of justice is daily. Consistent. Unglamorous. It is showing up every single day to do the right thing when no one is watching. She paused. That is what I ask of everyone in this room. Not grand gestures. Not viral moments. But daily commitment to the principles we claim to uphold. Fairness. Truth. Equal protection under the law. She straightened. Never mistake silence for submission. Never mistake composure for weakness. And never assume you know who someone is just because power has not revealed itself yet. She looked across the audience one final time. Because everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. Not because of who they are, but because of who we are supposed to be. She stepped back from the podium. The applause began slowly. Then built. Then thundered. 2,000 people on their feet. 2,000 voices joining in affirmation. But Nyasha was not thinking about the applause. She was thinking about the next case on her docket. The next name waiting for someone to listen. The next opportunity to make sure truth won. The work continued. It always did. That was the point. And somewhere in that audience, a young law student named Marcus Williams applauded louder than anyone else. Because he knew better than most what it meant to have someone finally listen. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you that truth and patience and dignity will always triumph over hatred and abuse of power, then share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to this channel and turn on that notification bell so you never miss another story. We share stories like this every week. Stories of courage. Stories of justice. Stories of people who refused to shrink when the world told them to bow. Drop a comment below and tell us your thoughts. Your words might inspire someone else who is going through something similar right now. Share this video. Start a conversation. Be part of the change. Because stories like this one do not just entertain. They remind us who we are supposed to be. Until next time, remember, never mistake silence for submission. Never mistake composure for weakness.